All right, we are live with the Channel Unfiltered. I am joined by the one and only Callen Sapien, CEO and co-founder of Synthreo. How you doing, Callen?
I'm doing great. Doing great. I finally have a voice back. I was a little worried that I was going to end up having to shift this, but it's working.
It sounds
We did double conference duty last week, and that was a lot of talking, keynoting, and all that stuff.
that's we got a good voice for it, man. You know what I'm saying? You got a good speaker's
Thanks.
voice, so you're doing all right. But it's good to have
Appreciate
you
it.
on. I'm excited to have this conversation. It's funny because I've heard about Synthreo for a while now, right? It's something that kind of popped up when I began our company HelpGhost, and I saw it, was very intrigued by it, and just throughout being in the channel, just continued to pop up. And then you're on the data council. I just got put onto the GTI data council
Yeah, congratulations. Welcome.
advisory. Yeah, which is super cool. And you spoke quite a bit there, and you said a lot of things that I had seen, through doing some research myself about where the channel is. I'm like, okay, this guy clearly knows what he's talking about. Not that I know what I'm talking about, but you clearly do. And then obviously you getting into the Pitch It by ConnectWise competition, which is massive for you guys. Very excited for that. I guess just real fast, real quick introduction of who you are, a little bit of your
Yeah.
history, and then I got some questions for you to jump in.
Well, the most important thing I did was actually create Pitch It. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding that I created it, but it's kind of funny to be in the program because I actually did create it,
Okay,
and it's
didn't
it's
know
it's kind
that.
of neat to
Yeah.
be in it. I think what Sean and team have done is actually pretty friggin' awesome in maturing it, and it's been amazing to see through. But my background, um, I, I like to go back a little further because I had a non-traditional path to where I'm at. I won't say success, but where I'm at. I didn't have any schooling, right? I first grade, second grade, I skipped to sixth grade, and then I had no school until I went to college at 25, and I had been in sales basically from 14 until 24. Got a degree, 4.0, yeah, after no school. But I got afraid of a salary. So I actually went right back into sales, which is what brought me to the MSP industry. I'd helped a couple friends change their business model from that kind of by the side of the road computer shop. But that was my exposure to outsourced IT before ConnectWise. And depending on how you do the math, I was in that kind of first 100 employees. My friend actually talked to me into coming. She was on her way out. She was the first ConnectWise account manager there, and I had over my 8.5 years at ConnectWise, I had about 13 different roles, ranging from sales to channel to strategy, product, and in different areas. And that's where a lot of people have gotten to know me. I founded Pitch It, actually left ConnectWise to join the first Pitch It winner, a company called Refactor that we promptly sold to Sophos. They were a DevSecOps automation platform. So automation has been in my blood for a long time. Realizing the kind of tech debt problem and the data problem, I jumped around a bit between MSP bots and LionGuard, right? Companies that drive data and drive automation and that anchor point, which led me into the AI side of things. And so we realized that AI was going to be a problem for SMBs and the MSP, and we wanted to create a company that leveled the playing field, right? Enterprises can go out and spend 7, 8, 9 figures on deployments, and we can't do that as an industry. And so we wanted to make sure that things were consumed securely and safely, but level that playing field so that the 17-person or 5-person company had the same thing that a PwC is giving American Airlines.
I appreciate that background, man, and it kind of leads into the first question here because I this is something that I've paid a lot of attention to. I'm actually creating a blog article and an accompanying YouTube video for our channel to kind of go along with the research that I've been doing on this subject. But you hit the nail on the head about there is you've seen both sides. You've seen the promise of AI and the SMB reality, and for all intents and purposes, MSPs are SMBs servicing other SMBs, right? Like
100%.
for
Yep.
for 99% of the channel, right? And what's the most common way you've seen MSPs fail at AI adoption, and why do you think that is? Like, what is the reason behind that?
So that's a great path to go down. And I would say that the number one way that they've failed at adopting it is, aside from the cliche, not doing anything, right? The main way though is trying to apply it to problems they've been trying to solve for years that already had a solution, and leaning into the tech the way that we do. AI solves business problems technically. It doesn't solve tech problems the same way. And as an industry, we have a tendency to lean away from human contact and lean into the technology management, the stack management, and at the cost of actually moving our businesses forward. And what I'm seeing is amazing, measurable outcomes by our partners that have very limited to actually negative client impacting consequences.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm sure you're familiar with it. I'd be surprised if you weren't. The MIT study. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yep.
The
Yep.
95% failure rate of internal deployment projects, right?
And they just
And
refreshed it and it's
did
holding
they?
true still another year
I
later.
I didn't know that they had. I saw. Okay, so
Yep.
they just did it again, right? And
Yep.
it's pretty dense, right? You can read articles that kind of summarize it, but their actual study is pretty dense, right? And one of the things that is kind of a lack of understanding of what outcome you're trying to achieve with that
Yes.
AI adoption. I did a webinar with Halo and another one with Hoodoo, and it kind of centered around this idea of we get a lot of people. Look, I run a company within the channel as well that is AI native, right? We get people coming to us that are excited about AI, but more often than I should say more often than not, but a significant amount of time it's exploratory because frankly, the event circuit right now is very, very big on highlighting everything that is happening in AI. And
Yes.
frankly,
Yep.
what is creating is a feeling of FOMO, of missing out, right? That we're not moving fast enough and that we need to get AI just to have AI, right? I
Yep.
have a personal belief, even as an AI native company founder, that we are at the swell of the wave of AI adoption within the MSP channel, not at the crest of it, right? It's
Completely
moving
agree.
much slower than I think people actually understand and are willing to admit, right? When it comes to AI adoption, how important is it in your perspective to know the outcome before you go searching for the solution?
Oh yeah, that is it's something I talk about a lot, and actually we've talked about on the Data Council. There's a there's this idea of the golden data set, right? Golden images, golden data, bronze data. Your data gets cleaned through. I probably shouldn't say this as a member of the Data Council, but I tend to say things that I think, whether or not they're going to get me in trouble. And the main thing that I believe is it's kind of, I don't know if swearing's allowed on your podcast, but
Yeah, you can say whatever you
fuck
want,
the
man.
data,
Yeah, you're good. You-
fuck the process, right? It's what matters is the perfect process, the perfect data set, right? The perfect outcome. And what I mean by that is we've all heard the, Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 times to master something. But if you do something wrong 10,000 times, you're going to master it the wrong way. I love Alexander Ovechkin's statement of practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. You have to know what the outcome is going to be. You have to be able to measure the outcome, and you have to be able to repeat it. Now, that's not to say don't go experiment, don't go do things, don't like we talked about this in the preamble before this call and recording started. I love failure. Like failure is how you learn. But the reality is if you're actually trying to get something out there in market, repeatable, you have to know what you're trying to go for. Don't try and boil the ocean. Do the small thing. They will build on itself. The word outcome has become a bad language as well, worse than the F word, because nobody knows what an outcome actually is. You got to know what it is. Start with the golden outcome that you want, measure it, talk to someone, find that pain point, and then work your way back. A lot of the time, it isn't even AI. AI helps,
Yeah,
but a lot of the time
yeah,
it's not even AI. Right now, we're working on better ways of interacting and engaging with our partners to get feedback quickly in the product. I've thought, oh, well, why don't I just go build that with Claude Code or something else? Candy costs $15 per user per month. I'm not going to do that because the outcome is
yeah.
faster engagement with my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of thoughts. One of the things you'll learn about me is that it's like I have like 15 competing things I want to ask you, and I have to sift through them a second, so it takes me a second to get my wherewithal. But one of the things that you said that I think is absolutely. I made a LinkedIn post about this a while ago, and a lot of times you say things and um, you hope they're true. You're
Right. Yeah.
speaking from your own you're speaking from your own experience, right? I
Yep.
can't say this is definitively true that I've tested this and this it is no longer a theory, but or a thesis, but a theory, right? Like it's not a hypothesis anymore. But at the end of the day, it's all we can do is put out our own thoughts, our own experiences, and the conclusions that we come to, right? So with all that
Yep.
being said, is I wrote it down so I didn't forget it. SMBs have the luxury of trying and experimenting. When you
Yes.
see a lot of these enterprise level organizations, and you've seen both parts, as I think we see. I'm not going to name any names, but there's plenty of organizations out there, both within and without the channel, that try their mightiest to implement AI solutions into legacy architecture, and it does not go very well, right? Regard and not even to mention the endless amounts of red tape and loopholes and or the hoops that people have to jump through and just the antiquated processes that we have to get the budget move forward. SMBs, on the other hand, can just jump in and do it, right? And
Yep.
like I get there's some risk to that, right? Like you don't want to
Yeah, but
just
the stakes are
do it
lower, right? To
exactly, much
actually do
lower.
that.
Yeah,
Yep.
and when you think about like how should how should MSPs, once like we said, are all intents and purposes SMBs, how should they think about experimenting? How should they think about first thing first is determining the outcome. I always like to say to our prospects when we talk to them, if you could wave the magic wand, what would the perfect ending be for you in this realm, right? What you're trying to achieve. But so taking that aside, understanding the outcomes the first thing, experimenting and trying and failing, right? How do SMBs do that well?
I actually, want to revert on what's the biggest kind of failure piece, and I don't think I gave a complete answer. This will allow me to complete that answer, which
Okay.
is I think that the problem is the first things we try and solve and experiment on are the areas that we know have issues. And I kind of said that, right? Where it's like, stop trying to solve the things you've been solving that can be solved with software without the AI. But it's also don't even bother trying to automate your help desk, right? Don't do that. There are when I was at Say Connect last week, when I was at IT Nation Connect, there were more than a dozen products out there to go do that for you, right? Get it out of service delivery. Get it out of our core competency. Work on your books. Work on your sales. Work on the other areas of the business that we have neglected as an industry completely, because that's where the experimentation should be happening. That's where you should be identifying the perfect process, the perfect outcome that we want. And that's, to me, one of the areas where I think all businesses should start. Almost every single that call that I get on when I'm working with an MSP, because we'll get on with our partners, we'll put on the polo, we'll do all the things that need to happen, or we'll just be that trusted AI partner, and they'll introduce us as like, hey, overnight we didn't grow AI wings. We hired someone that is going to work with us on your behalf. It's almost always the finance teams. It's almost always the go-to-market teams that we're working with. It's not the teams that you used to work with, ops and service ticketing and network and security. There are ways of enhancing over there, but most of the products that are coming to the market or the ones you already use, those are building AI enhancements in any ways. Go look
Yeah.
at the areas that are disparate. Go work at the areas that are not a core competency. That's my opinion on how that goes.
I heard a quote once that's I can't remember who said it, but it's I wish I could. They said, "Don't automate what you're good at."
Yeah, I
Right? And
I couldn't. I love that. I'm gonna have to figure out who said it, but I'll probably type it
actually,
in.
I
But
said that.
well,
Excuse me.
you said it,
That was a
Jamie
just
Kane.
direct quote. That's yeah, exactly direct Jamie McQueen quote right there. But yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, don't automate what you're good at, right? Like, my
Yeah,
background is SaaS sales, right? Like, I made my entire career off of selling products, right?
yep,
I feel confident in my ability, right? But then there are things that I'm not good at, the admin, non-revenue generating tasks that we internally are focused on automating, right? It's
yep.
not any different for an MSP. Like to your point, you're great at the technical things, right? So what are the things that you're horrible at, or the things that frankly nobody
Who's that?
enjoys
It's
doing?
generalized
No,
intelligence.
that nobody's going to be mad if it does get automated. That was something that Alex Farling said in the very first episode of this podcast was you guys said something very similar. Sales is the number one spot that he would look for automation processes in. Was one of the things that Alex said in AI. And the second thing is pick the thing that nobody likes doing and then automate that first because nobody's gonna be mad that you took the spreadsheets away from them. You know what
Do
I'm
you know
saying?
the
And
company Strategizer?
I don't believe so. No.
So in a previous life, I had the best title ever: strategic planning and organizational development manager for strategy. But I was a strategic
What was the
facilitator.
acronym for that?
I don't even think
Yeah.
we had, like, all I know is my
Yeah.
business card had to be
Yeah.
lengthwise when everybody else was horizontal. Uh, but
Yeah.
but when I was in that role, I was a planning facilitator, right? EOS, StratOp, those types of things that I took people through. Strategizer is another one like that. They actually built what's called the value proposition canvas or the business model canvas. A lot of people know that the milkshake study from Harvard, where it's what's the
Yes.
job of a milkshake. That's the
Yes.
strategizer folks, right? And there's this
Gotcha.
this process that they have around the value proposition canvas, pains and gains. And as a SaaS company, as a services company, as a whatever it is, your job is to understand your customers and your internal, consumers' pains, and it's to give them pain relievers and then build the gains, get them into the gym, get them going through. And so I think you nailed it when it's like the thing that people don't want to do. Offer a pain reliever first. It doesn't have to be fully automated end to end to have success. Offer a pain reliever and then start to build the gains because those are harder to get. Getting into the gym every day and going from, one plate to two plates to three plates is much harder, or 1 mile to 2 miles to 3 miles, or for our international colleagues, a kilometer, because it makes more sense divisible by 10. Like you get through the things, but focus on solving the pains, then get to the gain creation. And that's where you do start to automate the things that you're good at.
What do you think to go back, you talked about like you talked about Canny was a technology. Like, yeah, I could Claude
Yep.
code this, but I'm not. We use Upvote as something it's a Canny competitor, right? Yeah.
Oh, I might have to look
In
at that. Yeah.
yeah, we really
I'm
like it. But
startup,
anyways,
bootstrap.
we that's it, man. That's a good our customers seem to like it, so we'll take it. But
That's all that
anyways,
matters.
you,
Yep.
you talked about I could easily Claude code this, right? And there's a million things that we probably anybody could. To like, one of the beautiful things about where we are today, beautiful and dangerous, right? It's like a poisonous
And
butterfly
dangerous.
or something. Is the opportunity that people have that have not had before to code for the non-technical or the non-technical individual or non-technical founder, right? Speaking as one of them,
Same.
I
Yeah.
but one of the things that is really it's an interesting phenomena is the buy versus build debate within the MSP channel because MSPs are incredibly technical and so they can jump in and have at least a not saying they're full stacks software developers. There's clearly a difference in that, but they're ahead of the game from somebody that's a non-technical user, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you think about the buy versus build debate, is there a is what is like the do you think a deciding factor should be for an MSP to either buy or build?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've got a couple key criteria that I look at. And the first one is this a core competency and does it need to be a core competency to me and my business? That's the first thing. Like if I don't know how this works, does it matter? And if the answer is it doesn't matter if I don't know how this works, you need to buy it unless it's an insane amount of money. The second is, would it be monetized? Would my customers eventually pay for something like this? Like, is it aligned? So do I need to understand how it works and how it goes? And then is it something someone would pay for? Right. That would be the next step. And then then I go down. The next one is actually probably the main deciding factor. If this breaks, do I want to be able to blame somebody else? And what I mean by that is I think about that like for years, people have talked about, oh, I can host it in my own data center. I could do this. I could do that. Like for me, I want to be in the cloud as soon as possible. They spend more money on security. It's completely encrypted if you do it right. And if it goes down, it's not my fault. And it goes down very rarely. But I don't want to be the guy that somebody tripped over and unplugged it at a previous company. I won't name it. We had a server fire. Like that doesn't happen in
Mm,
AWS, right? So I
yeah.
think about that resiliency and do I need to be able to blame somebody else if the resiliency fails? So those are like the three main criteria. And then I start to look at, will this take away from somebody else's job that could actually deliver on those first three? And what is the cost overall? Is it something that's, because I look at things like, should I even be automating this? There's a certain level where there's value in having a human look at things still sometimes, or do it because it's part of their job. And we're on this mission to automate everything, or
Yeah.
take everything off of people's plates. Sometimes there isn't ROI to that. So those are the criteria I look at normally. Are there any that I missed that you guys look at?
No, I mean, time to ROI is probably one
Yeah,
of the
that's
biggest
another
ones.
one.
Like we
Yeah,
had,
yeah,
let's we had a really frank conversation with one of our users recently who said that there were two major vendors that everybody in the space would know that I'm not going to mention, that they were offloading and they were going to build themselves internally. They're a larger MSP. They have that ability to do that. They feel confident in accomplishing that, right? And I had to ask, well, why aren't we a part of that, right?
yeah,
And he said that the thing that we identified as one of our core criteria in that discussion, which is time to ROI. It's
yeah,
something that
yeah,
it's not a heavy lift to implement, and ROI happens quick enough that it doesn't make sense for us to do this and to offload and to maintain and to infer those costs
yeah.
because ROI is not going to be the same, right? And I think that's another piece that I would just add to that criteria for the
I
listener.
like it.
So
Yeah, yeah. And I think I'm like kind of doing that math in the back of my head when I'm thinking through. So I really like quantifying it though. Because if you don't
yeah,
quantify it, you don't list it, you don't measure it, you don't use it, right?
yeah. Well, and you mentioned something else too that I think is really important. I mean, you as a SaaS AI founder, right? Like something that we've talked about as well in these conversations with prospects, and is there's SaaS stands for software as a service. There
Service.
is a service element to you can build software, but the service when you offload and you build, not saying you shouldn't build, like you said, there are absolutely things that like I built using vibe coding software, right, that have been really helpful for us. But we don't get that service as a part of that build,
Yep.
right? Service is an integral part to the SaaS model, and not saying every company does that well. For us, customer experience is a core tenet of everything that we do. I believe, just like the founder of Mailchimp said, customer happiness is the ultimate moat, and I subscribe to that, right? And service being a part of it, such an integral part. When you I don't know if I really have a question, but what are your thoughts when you hear that we've got to include service as a part of SaaS in that equation?
This is, we weren't planning on going through a raise, but we're going through a raise now because we're seeing the success and we want to make sure that we can scale to meet our partners' needs, right? We're a sell through. So every time something goes wrong, it reflects on them, right? So we want to make sure that we have that. But my mantra, and something that I learned from the early days of ConnectWise, and I think I do get to get credit for this quote, is SaaS without service is shelfware, right? And so my belief is core to that. As a company, I am not just an AI company. I am a services organization, and I actually have purposefully built. And I won't name like some of my competitors to your point, but what I've seen, it's actually been kind of endearing for me to see like one of my biggest competitors in the space start to list that they're getting on calls with their customers, like to do demos and do these things. And it's all the things that I was told were unnecessary, right? Actually, by those people. But it's been a core tenet of who we are from the beginning. Building agents, training, taking the calls, getting on sales calls. To me, that is when someone's standing up and as a service piece, which is what every managed service provider is. I mean, it's in its name, like the SaaS side. Like we have to be there, especially when something's new. And again, without the service side, it's shelfware. There has been immense amount of adoption to the point of billions of users between Claude, Gemini, OpenAI, Grok, Copilot, which is actually consuming the other ones. And if you saw recently, the two biggest providers, OpenAI and Claude or Anthropic, they went out there and said, we're going to spend $6 billion hiring forward operating engineers. They're naming it something different. It's not a CSM anymore. It's not an implementation consultant. It's not a solutions architect. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's a person that is helping to drive adoption. And they're going to spend $6 billion over the next 2 years developing that role. And their job is to get rid of human task behaviors. That tells you all you need to know, right? And that's
Yeah,
that's what we do. I
absolutely.
continue to grow that team. We just hired 3 more people to help our partners drive adoption internally and with their clients.
What I guess that actually feeds into another question, so I'll just read it. Your partners are reporting a 343% surge in AI service requests over 6 months from the research that I did. Is that demand pull through real buying intent, or is it curiosity in your
I
mind?
honestly, we're seeing it as buying intent. The I think it starts as curiosity, but it's the people that didn't know are seeing it now, and the people that are seeing it are starting to actually be afraid of what they're doing in there because I'm
Mm.
gonna I'm not trying to shame anybody. We're all behind. Even I wake up and I'm like, holy crap, what is Anthropic going to release today, right? I
Yeah,
use Claude. I give people Claude through my platform and I'm still like, what market are they going to what market are they going to try and destroy, right?
yeah.
And when I sit here though, I do have to say the do nothing strategy that we employed for the past 2.5 years, 3 years, is really bad because OpenAI hit the market with ChatGPT in late November 2022. It was a consumer product, but it quickly jumped to business use. Billions of people have used it. There's numbers coming out now saying, even with the MIT study, 86% of all SMBs, whether it's shadow or official, are employing AI in their business today, not the stuff that's being embedded in their CRM, but actually bespoke solutions. And so we are behind, and we have led every technology conversion since Novell Systems putting in email and networks until now. So we do have to catch up. But what is really good with those larger numbers that you're seeing, some of them sound ridiculous, so like almost 400%, asking growth, is the fact that governance needs to exist, right? We need a layer in between what's happening here that we can't trust. Myself, I was always a blue hat. I was always a blue teamer. For those of you that are watching that don't know security, you basically have 3 teams in security systems, right? You've got your red team, which is what everybody wants to be a part of. I'm a hacker. I serve jail time. I'm the bad guy that's now a good guy. Got my blue team trying to stop the red team, getting data from the red team. And then I've got my purple team translating between, right? I was always a blue teamer. When I was a CISO, I thought about what do I have to put in place to minimize business risk so that we can achieve our missions. In the last 2 years, I've become a red teamer because there isn't the data for a blue teamer to work in an AI side. I've submitted 9 responsible disclosures across the 4 main model providers, and I've been met with silence. And I've watched post. Normally it means it was probably before, but I've watched post at least 7 breaches related to the responsible disclosures, including the Mexico attack, which I did 6 weeks before that attack happened. We shared that, and actually 2 months before that attack happened, a good friend of mine, Kevin Zwan over at QCyber, submitted it. We had a talk at Write a Boom about it. They're aware of these problems that exist. They're core to the training of AI. We need to provide some governance in there, and that's the thing that I think is between the curiosity and the I'm hitting a wall and the holy shit, what have I put in here and how's it going to affect me? That's what we're seeing, this groundswell. Sorry, that was a
That
long
leads me. No, you're good. I mean, take as much time as you need, man. But that leads into the next question, which is 78% of SMBs say that they would prefer to buy their AI solutions from their existing managed service providers, right?
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
But from the most recent numbers I have seen is that only 10 to 12% of MSPs are actively offering AI services. We cannot pretend that this is not a massive gap that exists, right? What's the actual blocker? Like, what is happening there?
Fear, and the fear bit us in the ass a decade ago. Almost exactly a decade ago, this industry landed on the map because of Office 365. Microsoft's success in the past decade in SMB, 48% of the world's economy, was the conversion of 365. That was led by the MSPs. The problem with that conversion is it's a topic that I keep being told by some people don't talk about, but was that we gave up all the infrastructure control. And when we watch what happened with the hyperscalers and the AWS Premier partners and the solutions integrators or systems integrators, they went up by trillions. We went up by billions and hundreds of billions. Like the factor of increase when we gave up that. Now it got hidden by the security growth. We got very fortunate that the movement to the cloud meant there was a new attack surface to secure. So we got some of that back. We're in the same spot again in the fear of overruns of tokens, the fear of saying the wrong thing or expanding the attack surface or just looking stupid is what's stopping us. Nerdio tried years ago, and they actually have had some success, right, in standardizing consumption in the cloud and offering a cap. That's why we chose the pricing model we did. I take a lot of risk on when I build an agent for someone or onboard a user because we are effectively unlimited within the pricing that we offer against tokens and everything else. But I'm doing that because my fear is that we'll have the same thing happen to us again. We'll be relegated to whatever margin that Anthropic or OpenAI or Google or Microsoft is willing to give us, which isn't much. It's not enough to build a business off of. And especially in a PE EBITDA driven world, it's not enough to build a business off of. And so I'm trying to provide personally a solution that we can get around that by taking away some of that fear. But right now it's fear of not looking intelligent, fear of cost overruns like happened in there, and then fear of not being able to secure the attack surface, in my opinion.
How do we obviously you're building a solution to help get it around a piece of that or part of that
Yep.
fear, an element, right? But as a whole, what are your ideas of getting over that fear, getting past that blocker that we're seeing? Because that's coming. I can only speak. Let me preface this, I guess. Coming from the outside, like I talked to you
Yep.
before, I don't hide this, right? Like I never worked for MSP. I didn't run an MSP, right? I've come into this as an outsider. I think that has served me in a lot of ways. I think obviously I had a lot of catching up to do, and I still do, right? But it was very obvious to me when I entered the channel, coming from my software background, exactly what you just said of like the adoption is lagging here. And I didn't know, and I had to discover that for myself. And it really came down to compliance, compliance and security and governance from what I found, amongst other things, right? That you kind of listed there, right? But when it was obvious to me coming into it, this isn't happening, right? And then when you look at kind of the trends in MSPs are forward thinking technical people, it was somewhat surprising to me that that wasn't occurring. And you just listed all those things out. So as a general rule, if you had to give advice to every MSP that was listening that was going through that fear, what would be the advice that you would give to them to get past this blocker?
Yeah. The first is, in my opinion, look, we said that unified networks were going to kill MSP. We said that cloud was going to kill MSP. We said that security. I've made the case that some of those things actually have eroded the value that we could have had. I don't want to be the boy who cries wolf. I don't want to say if you do nothing, but I will say, again, dozens of solutions at all these events are saying, how do I automate 80% plus of help desk, which is where most MSPs derive their visible value. It's not everything that we do, but it's the visible value that the end customer understands. To me, we've already experienced hyper commoditization. It's a downward trend of IT services. We are headed towards, Arlen Sorensen said this at the last Evolva groups, we're headed towards a ceiling of $75 a seat and a floor of $50 a seat, even below. And that's where we're going. If we do not act, it's going to be devastating to a lot of companies, in my opinion. And so I think the first thing is the realization that it's an existential threat moment. This is shifting in a way that it's never shifted before. The second thing is find the right partner. It doesn't have to be us, right? Like whether you lean into, I know of a couple of good roll-ups that have leaned completely into Microsoft, right? Find that partner program, find the thing that you're confident talking about, and know that even the customers that have drilled in are still using it largely to make images of puppies, right? It's they're like nobody is actually really doing that much, but they're starting to, and you still have a window to operate and understand yourself. Don't, what I would say the big don't is don't be SaaSified, right? Don't take a SaaSified solution that wants to give you a margin versus help you build a service. Build a service around AI and the governance and the delivery of outcomes with AI, and do it today. Like do it today, because my thing that I see as a trend that scares the ever living hell out of me for this industry is the fact that we've been we've been programmed and we've been conditioned to accept what vendors are willing to give as a margin. And we've stopped building services that provide value around that. And instead, what we need to start to talk about is you said it earlier, build that outcome that I want to achieve, or a set of outcomes, depending if it's agents, chat workspace, whatever it is, and then start delivering that. And it doesn't matter with what you do, other than the fact that don't let it be oversimplified, because your customer's not going to get the outcome that they want, and you're not going to get the margin that you need to pay your bills.
I think one of my core beliefs as a founder myself is that revenue is a byproduct of value delivered, right? Like revenue
It's
takes care of
a verb,
itself,
go
right?
giver. Yep.
What you're saying is essentially that to these MSPs of like, obviously don't be ignorant to what you're paying and those sorts of things, right? But at the end of the day, focused on delivering outcomes for your customers, for your client base, because they're I I I I I read an article, it was a while ago, and it was very enlightening for me as somebody that, like I say, came up outside of the channel, right? And
Yep.
that AI is the first time in the MSP history where SMBs are driving technological adoption and not MSPs bringing it to their clients, which I
Yep.
thought was really interesting, right? That real just to learn about the history of the channel there, and how we view that, right? There was,
Yep.
you mentioned there's an existential threat, and that is a reality, but there are a few times that I think that you can transfer what you would call an existential threat to a generational opportunity. And I
Oh
think
my
that's
gosh, the
exactly what we
opportunity,
have in
and
front of us.
I should add that, like it's not all
I
doom and
got your
gloom.
back, man. I
It
got your
it
back.
no, I
Yeah.
appreciate you, because there is so much, like we don't have core values. We've got be a go giver and break shit. Those are
I
our
like it.
core values. And the but being a go giver is our core value. And if you're not familiar, a go giver is like you generate value that generates revenue. You and I are completely aligned. And there is so much revenue, and you can save people so much money. We have an MSP that built we're building the agent for and with them. He was an early adopter on it. He kept giving away. He wanted to be that MIP, managed intelligence partner or provider. And he kept giving away the business. And then he came to us. We worked together. And this isn't a pitch for Synthreo. It's a pitch for the opportunity that's ahead of them. He's out there. He finds a company that he can drive an immense amount of savings with. Like they're spending over $500,000 a year on FTE and process costs that we can deliver with an agent, that he can make a very good margin, save this company $450,000 a year, and deliver more on the outcome. That isn't a forever thing, right? Because the cost shift and an outcome based thing. But the fact that he's able to provide that it's never been before like this, right?
Yeah.
It's
Like you said, that
incredible.
value won't be continuing, but that the appreciation of that value will last forever. Like that's the
You exactly.
it's like the old saying is people won't remember what you say, they'll remember how you made them feel. It's that
Yep.
same thing. Sure, they won't remember the specifics of the solution that you provided, but that you deployed with them, but they absolutely remember the value that you drove with them, and that trust that builds in the future, where maybe the ROI isn't nearly as obvious as what you're speaking to, but they trust you because
Yep.
you
You
supplied
did
the
it
value, that go
right.
giver mentality.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I got a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up here because I do think we're coming up right up on time here. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is uh when it comes to Synthreo specifically, right? The You guys are LM agnostic from what I understand. Is that
Correct.
correct?
That
Okay,
is
right.
correct.
So and you own the full stack, right? From
Yep.
3
All
AI builder,
proprietary. Yep.
tenant management layer, all that sort. So how do you keep pace? How do you keep pace with the when the underlying model landscape is changing like every 90 days, right?
Yeah.
And without your platform like becoming stale or being injured by those consistent changes that are, frankly, you mentioned it earlier, or they're happening all the time. It's hard to even keep up with.
I mean, for me, it's leaning in completely, right? You saw at Code Anthropic's event, if anybody saw that, 100% of Claude code is written by Claude. It makes some sense because there are some things in there that are a little funny. Codex is like 98% is written by Codex, right? We're in a similar level of we're chasing. We're not quite there yet, but we're chasing that. I'll tell you, recently we realized that our chat solution was phenomenal for when it came out. It was very close to parity May of last year when OpenAI was still winning everything. It was very similar. Uh, we fell behind in looking at other areas. We have completely rewritten and redeployed the software. Monday, every single one of my partners is going to have a new interface and a new set of features on top that we've built, not on top, replacing, right? So for us, it's this highly adapted software development lifecycle and CI/CD process that's continuously reinventing and adapting, and it's very hard to shift legacy software development thinking into that. But we are changing almost on a daily basis to keep our partners ahead of that curve in a curated way, right? Not every change needs to be adopted. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, Claude announced Claude for small businesses. And in my mind, I was like, oh, they finally realized we exist. They're gonna come after the MSPs. They're gonna come after the agentic stuff. You know what it was? It was 7 skills and 5 plugins wrapped into a single solution. Well, I can do that. An MSP can do that for their partner, and we could do it in a governed way. So it's also taking the time to separate what is, it's like Schrodinger's hype, like it's overhyped and underhyped, and it's trying to figure out what's a dead cat and what's a live cat in the hype cycle. And so that's what we spend a lot of our time doing, listening to the ear to the ground, waiting for the buffalo, and then moving when the buffalo are actually coming.
I love that Schrodinger's hype. That's I'm definitely gonna steal that. It is
That's
a
what I've been saying for about the last year.
yeah, I love that, man, because that's I mean it is a paradox. There's no other way around that, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I really it's, if you like, last question here as we kind of wrap up, as you we talked about before we started recording, the whole point of this podcast and this show is to talk about how emerging outcomes are affecting outcomes within the MSP channel, and how and what MSPs can do to take advantage of that, right? If you had to give a singular piece of advice within or without AI, talking about emerging technology in general, what would that be to the MSPs in an ever-changing landscape that is shifting faster than it has before?
I would say stop doing the work. Let AI not be your intelligence, but let it be your hands. That's the thing that I'm fighting my engineers and everything else on, is the it has to be your hands. Like, we need it to go through. The intelligence is great, but you've got to get it to where you're actually focusing on the high value things. Go talk to the customers more. I was talking to an MSP end customer the other day, and they said, all of these new automated things are being rolled out to them, all of these things. And it's great because they get instant response and that, but they haven't talked to the partner in six
Yeah,
months. And
yeah.
and it's like, let it be your hands for that work, and go be the voice. Go advocate, go talk, go be strategic, right? Plan. So that's the shift. Become an amazing delegator. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's AI, it's Claude Code, it's whatever it is. Become a delegator and let the technology become your hands.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more, man. I'll say this, I guess, in closing, because this is the first time you and I have met, but something that I've said consistently has been, AI is really great at doing a lot of things, right? And you've already, I won't rehash them because you've talked about all of them during this podcast, right? But one of the things that it's not and will never be good at is human empathy and true
No.
judgment,
Yep.
right? And in that human connection, right? Now
That
you
judgment is critical.
absolutely. Yeah, it's so when I think about, I jokingly say at HelpGhost at my company, right? We're building the the Iron Man armor for the MSP. You're
Yeah.
Tony Stark. You're the genius. We're just augmenting that genius, and we're just helping you out, right? To
Yep.
free you to do and you're saying the same thing. To because at the end of the day, the promise of AI should not be reduce your head count. And I hate that that's even a thing within the space
No,
and AI
it's
marketing in
buying
general. It
capacity.
should be exactly. It should be upskilling your people, getting them off the things that are killing their genius, and getting them to do the things that only they can do. And I think you hit it because my background is face to face, is building trust, that human connection because of sales. I think there's a massive opportunity when I look at as an outsider to the MSP channel, a former outsider as I come into it. Man, there's a massive opportunity for that, and I think AI is the technological opportunity, human connection, and being able to really be a human focused support organization. Not that you're not already, but to really get into that and to really own that is the biggest business opportunity that I see in the channel for the MSPs at large. So I actually would
Completely
love to
agree.
hear your thoughts on that kind of in closing here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm talking to partners that are hearing or seeing or experiencing themselves, millions of dollars in ARR, and numbers we had never seen before, right? In this industry. And it's all coming between this. It's not I deployed a product and they're happy. It's all coming at the cost of our time, but the AI is buying the capacity to be able to go do that time. And it's trust, right? Like, you can't trust a machine to make the judgment call, to your point. It's still, I'm a firm believer in the machine just has to be better than the human to make the call. But at the end of the day, we still want a human making the judgment call. A good friend of mine runs an MSP, and he's a judgment line judge in the NFL in his free time. And they don't think AI will ever take that type of thing away, because at the end of the day, there's a factual argument, but it's not. But a lot of the time, things are happening in these microseconds that, when you say someone had control of the ball, that is a
What does that
judgment.
actually mean? Yeah,
That's not a
100%.
fact. There is no factual statement to that. And at the end of the day, AI is a prediction engine that is trained to make you happy. Like we've started, Synthreo helped back me on something called Sapien. It was not to be to have hubris. I really hated, but people kept saying, you work in AI and your name is Sapien. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what it is it's a safety assessment for intelligent entity networks, right? So it's an acronym. I grew up with Kit from Knight Rider and
Mhm.
Airstrike and all those other stuff, but essentially it's to track behavioral drift and sycophancy. And it's a standard like OWASP or CIS or MITRE or any of these other ones. And the idea is that anybody uses it to track this. If AI is basing its judgment on what it thinks you want, AI can't make the judgment call. And so to me, it's the human interactions. I think you're spot on, that we can say whether this should be, that should be, whether this is good or bad. AI can't tell us if things are good or bad. They can tell us the numbers, they can tell us inferences, but it's a prediction engine at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
that's where we think, and you can't take the humans out of that.
Yeah, amen to that, man. Well, Callen, I appreciate you making the time, man. Excited for your getting to start and then also participate and pitch it, which is incredible, man. Good luck to you in that competition
Thank you very
and
much.
throughout. Is there anything where can people find you, speak with you, look at Synthreo, all those good things?
Yeah, I'm pretty accessible. Hit me up on LinkedIn. There aren't many Callen Sapiens. My email is that it's just first name, last initial. I couldn't get my co-founder to go with just the first names. That's all I've ever wanted. But he's like, we might have another Callen, and that's, hey, you know what? If there is, good. But at Synthreo.ai, and I'm always happy to have conversations about this stuff. It's my passion. So thank you, and really appreciate you hosting us. And look forward to learning more about you guys as well.
Of course, man. Yeah, I will say that was one of the things I was most excited about when I started HelpGhost was the fact that I could have a single uh Jamie handle in Slack and have that first name
Man,
only. Right. It's
someday I'm just gonna create it myself because
yeah,
like that's all I ever
uh,
wanted. Like
yeah, yeah,
Arnie for ConnectWise was Arnie at ConnectWise. Like I want
yeah.
to be Callan.
Yeah, I mean, all the companies I worked for, the founders, they were the only ones that had the name,
Yep.
the singular, the first name. In our Slack, my other two co-founders, they had their full names, and I'm like, you got to take advantage. You just get to be Jamie, So it's
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
you get it, man. But anyways, I appreciate you making the time. Really excited for you. And everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Channel Unfiltered. This thing was packed with a ton of value. I hope you enjoyed it. Look out for the next one and listen to our previous episodes. We'll catch you next time. Thanks.